Now, there was a time when the idea of being an environmental refugee, the idea of environmental refugees felt like a distant dystopian future, maybe starring Clive Owen or something like that. But the future is now. A 2021 report from the World Bank estimates that by 2050, 200 million people will be forced to move, displaced within their countries due to the changes in ecology. Some of those changes are due to climate change, others are due to natural disasters, and then there are the unnatural disasters, man-made, industrial, the disasters that in a just world would be 100% avoidable. So let's talk about that. The oil sands industry is an economic driver for Canada and Alberta, but the companies that extract the bitumen needed to produce those 3.3 million barrels of oil a day. It turns out that those companies are not good neighbors. They are also grossly negligent in their stewardship of Athabasca's boreal forest, which sits atop the largest reservoir of crude bitumen on the planet. Killer Water tells the story of the sickening of the Athabasca River, Alberta's longest river and the home of the Chippewa First Nations and the surrounding forests. The documentary shows us in vivid detail how swaths of this once life-sustaining waterway and the land surrounding it are now rapidly moving towards inhabitable conditions. Traditional land use is dwindling. The fish is not safe to eat. There is real fear that the animals, once hunted for food, are not safe to eat, marking a devastating economic, cultural, communal, spiritual shift for the people of Fort Chip. The everyday ways of being have been forever altered for generations to come. And no one is scratching their heads wondering why this is happening. The why is clear. This is a consequence of corporate greed, a lack of governmental oversight, and a sad apathy on the part of the general public. This is a story that needed to be told and shared. Brandi, Morin, and Geordie Day took months and months to gather the first-hand accounts from the First Nations community living along the Athabasca as tailings from Imperial Oil's Curl Mine continued to spill into the waterways. They spoke with Chief Adam Allen, who has been fighting both the government and the mining companies for some kind of accountability for decades, sometimes finding himself at odds with his own community. They spoke with scientists who have gathered irrefutable research on the high and climbing rates of cancer in the area. As one notes, the science does not lie. We learned from Mandy Olsgaard, a toxicologist, that there is no regulatory body that is responsible for testing for toxic chemicals or checking on the physical impacts of those living downstream from an oil sands project. I just read that and I'm just so taken aback. Brandi and Geordie went out onto the water with Jason Castor, a traditional hunter, trapper, and fisherman, for a tour of the waterway he and countless generations have lived off. The camera is there as Jason scoops up dark, murky, foamy water swimming with sediment. He says he's been assured by the mining companies upstream that it's perfectly okay to drink. Would you let your family drink that? He asks. We learn of 2 major leaks from the Curl Mine, spilling water laced with hydrocarbons, sulfates, and arsenic, the tailings from the mine into the Athabasca. We learn that one of the leaks was reported to Imperial Oil by its own staff and the Alberta Energy Regulator. Neither saw fit to alert government officials or the Indigenous communities directly affected. Brandi, Geordie, and their team took the time necessary to collect these stories with care and compose a documentary that is beautifully shot, carefully researched and reported, edited and told with clarity and emotional heft. I want you to think about the documentaries that come to mind when you think about environmental reporting. Just think about them. Did your inner voice automatically hear David Attenborough? Probably, right? The docs we think of have big names and big budgets attached to them. Killer Water was shot by a tiny crew, written, produced, and edited by Brandi and Geordie, backed by a trio of very small independent media companies. It was a scrappy undertaking executed with finesse on a tiny budget of around $15K. Yeah, I'm in awe too. I am in awe. 1-5. Yeah. Cinematographer Geordie Day has a background in journalism and reached out to Brandi because he saw the importance of telling stories with social impact. Geordie brought the color, the creativity, the vibrancy to Brandi's words. Together, they formed what Brandi calls a partnership that is a portrait of reconciliation. Brandi Morin is a journalist who does not shy away from advocacy and activism. I know the mere thought of those string of words put together makes a lot of people in this room very nervous. They don't feel good. Activism, journalism, advocacy, what are you talking about? But tonight, we are here at the behest of the late Sidney Hillman. And I'm gonna guess that the social justice loving trade unionist would be more than cool with me stringing those words together. In August of 2023, Brandi Morin was roughed up by RCMP officers while covering the anti-logging protest at Fairy Creek on Vancouver Island. Then in January of this year, she was arrested and charged with obstruction of justice while covering the clearing of a homeless encampment in Edmonton. The charges were withdrawn 2 angst-filled months later. Brandi and Geordie remain undaunted. They are well into their next project. Ask them about it if you're here and you see them. It turns out there are many, many, many stories just like this one happening around the world. Killer Water, meanwhile, has been doing the rounds, being shown at small theaters, at community centers, and schools. The people of Fort Chip have embraced the film, knowing that finally someone is listening. Finally, their story is being told and shared. Last month, the Athabascan Chippewan First Nations served the Alberta Energy Regulator with a $500 million lawsuit alleging negligence and failure to live up to treaty obligations. The journalism practiced by this team comes with risk. It is high stakes, it is personal, and it is vital. I am so pleased to present the Broadcast Hillman Prize for Investigative Journalism for this year to Brandi Morin and Geordie Day for Killer Water, the toxic legacy of Canada's oil sands industry on Indigenous communities.
Tamiki, I'm so grateful for this. Thank you to the Hillman Foundation, to God, to the community of Fort Chippewan who so openly and courageously shared their stories with us. They're still living with the pain of being dumped on and forgotten about. Please go and watch our film. You can watch it on YouTube. Killer Water. This was such an incredible project because we worked with 3 independent media outlets, Ricochet Media, the Real News Network out of the US, and IndigiNews to make this happen. When we take pitches and they're rejected or they're looked over, and then you have others that take it on and make it happen, and then you get this recognition, it's really powerful. And for me, it's so powerful for the community that their story is going to be elevated through this. So I'm really, really grateful. I have a couple of mentors here tonight that are there supporting me. And I'm also really grateful to my colleague, Geordie Day. So we met a couple of years ago when he reached out to me. He's an incredible cinematographer, filmmaker. He wanted to work with the journalists. I invited him to come to Rome when we went and covered the Papal Apology and then across Canada. And we started making these small docs last summer with these independents. And You know, Geordie just has been incredible to work with, and when I say, like, working with him, to me, is a portrait of reconciliation. He just comes on board, and he goes with the flow when we're on the ground. You know, it's the Indian way, it's not the traditional way, you know, and he goes with it to make these films happen, and he's just chill and easygoing and stunningly talented at what he does. And I really want to just take a moment to publicly honor him right now, because we do this work. You know, we do this, and it's hard work. And you know that, you know, sometimes your rates are cut. And I love him, and I really want to honor him and thank him for everything. So I have
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, now you guys talk.
Okay. I just have to... Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Thank you so much. I really want to thank the Sidney Hillman Foundation. This is such an honor. And I really want to thank you, Brandi. You're fearless, and you give a voice to those that need to be heard. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of that. Thank you so much. I also just really wanted to thank those that were courageous enough to speak with us and to share their story. Chief Alan Adam, Calvin Wakan, Jason Castor, Dr. John O'Connor, Manny Olsgaard, and Margot Vermillion. Very grateful for them for doing that. And I also really wanted to make sure that we thanked our editors, Ethan Cox and Andrea Houston, who's here, with Ricochet Media, as well as Max Alvarez and Kayla Rivera with The Real News. And as well as Kara McKenna with IndigiNews. Yes, absolutely. I also really wanted to thank my mom, who came with me tonight. As well as my girlfriend, who puts up with a really crazy traveling schedule. So thank you so much. This is such an honor. Thank you so much.